Good morning from Wings Willow Farm, Wild American Cowgirl here. I've been wanting to do a series of short videos talking about my why and giving you guys a little bit of background on why I'm here, what I'm doing, and kind of my story. I've been realizing that there's a lot of people that don't know my stories, which is fine. Don't know why maybe that I would have selected California versus anywhere else, considering that there's a lot of other states that are far more affordable, that have policies that align much stronger with being an independent farmer, especially small independent farmer, as well as living the type of lifestyle that I choose to live, being more of a primitive setup versus traditional mainstream type of housing and facilities, that sort of thing. So first, let me just say, I literally looked in just about every other state there is. I knew the far northern, eastern New England states weren't for me. They just never drew me in. Why? Have you seen the winters? I do not do well in extreme cold. That said, I did consider Alaska for a while. But again, it's the extreme cold winters, the short winter or short summers, just didn't appeal to me. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. I've never been there personally, but everything that I've seen does make it very attractive in the warmer months. But the winters, I just couldn't do it. And as an extension on that, the other states that I really considered, West Virginia, Missouri, Tennessee, Indiana, Iowa, Oklahoma, Texas, Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. Honestly, sorry guys, love your states. I love the gardening. I love, so much about those states, but I know me and I know that the winters would be too harsh for me. I didn't want to go somewhere where there was potential of tornado. I know, California has fire. I get it. And you guys have warnings for tornadoes and they really don't do that much damage when the grand scheme of things. Yes, when they touch down, they do touch down hard and they will do a lot of damage. But I didn't feel comfortable going into Tornado Alley with a farm. I know people do, it just wasn't for me. I really am rooted here in these Northern Sierra Mountains, where I'm at. So let's back up a little bit. I was born Orlando, Florida in 1970. When I was just a little one, I think I was turning about 3 at the time, my family moved to Thousand Oaks, which is near Ventura in Southern California. And we were there for a short period of time. I think my sister graduated from high school down there. And then our next move was to Fair Oaks, which is in Sacramento County. And my parents purchased the homestead that my grandparents built, I believe back in the 40s or 50s. And I remember learning about the history of the house and the homestead itself. First off, my grandmother had the most beautiful gardens. The chickens are over here. She had so many different specific types of garden areas. She even had a sunroom that my grandfather built on the front porch area that had shelves deep enough and windows big enough to grow her orchid collection. And she had her camellias and azalea garden. She had beautiful geraniums. She had every kind of conifer you could imagine planted that were previous Christmas trees. She had her irises, daffodils, lilacs. I mean, the list goes on. Not to mention the orchards, the apple almond, walnut, pears, peaches, apricots, plums, cherries, everything you could imagine was on this homestead. So that's where I spent my younger years. And that's where I fell in love with the idea of living on a farm and a homestead. Even as a child, I loved it. And I just feel like it was a magical upbringing. And then just as I was heading into the teenage years, we sold the homestead. Mosquitoes. We sold the homestead and moved to a log house in Grass Valley, up in the mountains, the Sierra foothills. This move was absolutely another life-altering move for me because we had spent many years. Oh, sorry, I think I got a mosquito bite. The mosquitoes down here are pretty gnarly. We grew up camping. We did a lot of camping, and we went up to areas: Loon Lake, Desolation Valley, Rollins Lake, Lake Spalding, a bunch of different areas where we did tent camping, backpacking. We had an old little, travel trailer that we would camp in, but we would go on hikes when we'd camp, and we almost always camped at a river or a lake. So that, has always been a huge draw to me. But up in Grass Valley, living in the log house, kind of out, a little bit more secluded, we, hold on a second. Okay, had to make sure I wasn't still being bit by something. So, we focus on camping near water. So I absolutely always loved being near water. Where we lived in Grass Valley, we had relatively close access to the Bear River, the Yuba, and the American. Younger years also in Fair Oaks, we would spend a lot of time on the American River, rafting, hiking, day trips for family, going to Folsom Lake. I even participated in horse camping, where I rode my horse along river trails, and we camped. But it wasn't until being up in Grass Valley that my love of the mountains really solidified. I had horses, so did my friends, and it was amazing. We would ride horses to each other's house, and we'd spend the night. We'd ride horses to our friend's house, throw your horse in their pasture, and spend the night. And, we'd take our things with us, and we would ride to Wolf Creek and go swimming and jumping off the little cliff there, and we'd swim in the creek with the horses. We'd ride to the Bear River and swim in the river there, let our horses play. It was a magical teenage years during that time. We just really had a great time. And then, of course, as teenagers get older, their interests change, and I ended up moving away. With my first husband, we moved to Philadelphia. We weren't there a whole year, but then after that, we moved to San Diego. The condensed version, I was in San Diego for 34 years, and yet I never ever called it home. It was not home to me. But I always held the dream of having a homestead. I wanted a farm. I wanted horses again. I wanted chickens. I wanted to raise, animals for meat and have a beautiful garden. There was so much of my memory, of my core, that was attached to homesteading. And the other half of me is in these mountains. The Northern Sierra Mountains, the rivers, the lakes, the American River, the Yuba River they're both very magical to me. And even though I live very close to the American River, 15 minutes away, the Yuba, there's a spot on the Yuba River that I think is the most magical place on planet Earth. Sorry, I'm getting mosquitoes. I'm trying to do this to keep them off me. I always knew I would come back to these mountains. I didn't know how, because, in California, real estate's expensive, and there's a lot of political stuff. I won't go into it because, quite frankly, I'm not not that worried about politics. I have a love of nature. I want to protect and preserve nature. And I also have a love of personal freedom. I'm an American. My father served in the U.S. Air Force, fighter pilot in the Korean War. And, you know, that stuff changes. We can always influence culture, society, politics. What we can't change and what I hope to preserve are the beautiful nature of these mountains. And that's why I am here. Yes, I could have got a full, beautiful homestead somewhere else in another state for what I paid for here. Won't go into what I paid, but just saying that there were way more opportunities in other states where I could have purchased, an old farmstead, homestead that already had a barn, that had all the facilities, that had beautiful land, 20, 30, 40 acres. I could have purchased cabins, in just some beautiful, beautiful areas. But what I didn't want was a harsh winter. What I didn't want was the potential of mass flooding. And I didn't want tornadoes. I wanted a place that was close to where my heart is, in these mountains. My parents, even though I know that it's just their bodies, their graves are in Nevada County, which is not too far from me. That's important to me. My sister is within an hour, and her family. There was a lot of things that kept me drawn to California, kept me tied to California. My sons are in Southern California, still in San Diego County. My daughter's in Paris, France, and, I don't know where she'll end up even living, probably all over the world, and that's awesome. That's why we have airplanes. But California, yeah. I love the seasons, the 4 seasons I get here. I love that my winters here are really not that extreme. I can continue gardening all through winter with a greenhouse. I have my horses here. There's trails that I can trailer to. The summers here do get hot. It can get 100, 105 here, here and there, but it's not a constant. And, I just love California. I don't want to be one of the people that leaves because I disagree with certain things. I want to be one of the people that stays and pulls us all together, through a common passion for nature, for health, total wellness, preservation of these gorgeous mountains, preservation of history, and everything along those lines. So anyway, I'm hoping that answers a little bit. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about my continued story, or my story, and how I got to where I'm at in some upcoming videos. But I wanted to just say, why California? Why homestead here? Now you know. Have a great Wednesday, guys.